Thank you for the absolutely wonderful movie. I liked it so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you don't mind if the question is too personal, but may I ask about your relationship with your parents and relatives? And was there something particular that made you write this from your experience to write this story, or?
No, I mean, I know you use your own perceptions and your own experiences. Ideas come from, but this was nothing specific. In fact, I was quite surprised myself that this is what I wrote. So I can't say there was anything really particular about my family, my own family. There are some funny things, or interesting things. For example, the twins in the third story, my mother and her brother were twins, and they were quite telepathic because my grandfather, their father, was a criminal, and he basically abandoned them by being in jail and prison. And their mother, my grandmother, was a school teacher, so she worked to take care of them, but since they were tiny, they were always together. And I swear, in my house, the phone could ring, and my uncle's name was Bob, Uncle Bob. And my father's name was Bob, another story. So and I had cousins my age, so whenever we're all together for Christmas, where's Uncle Bob? Wait, your Uncle Bob or my Uncle Bob? And then later I'm in England, I keep hearing, and Bob's your uncle. Anyway, getting back to the telepathic thing, my mother, the phone could ring and she'd go, oh, that's Bob. And hello, Bob. Or she would say, I think Bob is maybe not feeling well today. She'd call him and, oh, you have the flu, I felt it, you know. So a very strange thing I always observed, and as a child I was like, how does that work exactly, you know? Don't you have to pick up the phone first to know who's on it? So, but in the general thing, I've lost both my parents, and it is true you find out things about them after they're gone and things like that. But honestly, this was not there's not an autobiographical element, and I don't really know why I wrote it.
But about the third episode, I have to say, I lost my father in January. Thank you for the episode, because since then I realized there are very few films about that. As if because you're going to lose your parent, it's expected, as if you don't have there's so much issues that you start dealing with after that.
Yes.
So thank you so much. Why do you think there are no films about it? Just because it's natural, you have to suck it up because it's going to happen to you if you're lucky, if you're not going to go before them.
I think because like in our film, you have to deal with all that stuff. You know, all these things that aren't yours, but they're meaningful somehow. They were.
All the memories, it's just
I don't know. Anyway, I really don't know, and I'm not analytical about what I do. I'm very intuitive, and I usually carry ideas around for a year or years before I write the script very fast. And this one, I was carrying the ideas only for several months, and then wrote the script very fast, 3 weeks or something. So,
what was the first idea you had for this?
The first idea was, Tom Waits, the father of Adam Driver and Mayim Bialik. Mayim Bialik is a kind of child TV actor star in America, but I didn't know any of that. I'm not a TV guy, but I love the show Jeopardy, and she was a host on Jeopardy, my favorite host ever. So when Mayim was on, I was like, oh, Mayim's the host, you know? And then later I thought, wow, she would be great as Adam's sister in this little thing I'm thinking of. So that was the beginning, and then while writing that first chapter, the others were forming themselves mysteriously behind it, you know?
Right.
So, but the first was really Adam and Tom, and then Mayim.
Okay.
So they were, and I write for actors imagining them, and so that was very kind of the impetus of the thing.
And when did the Rolex show though?
Oh God, I don't know. I don't know where the Rolex came from. I know a friend of mine lived in the Central African Republic, my best friend. He was a musicologist, and he lived with the Bayaka people, or Pygmies, but that's not really good. And he recorded their music for many years. Anyway, in New York, you can go to Canal Street and buy fake Rolexes fairly cheap. And he would always buy them before he was returning to bribe many officials that he would have to go through. So I was always interested, oh wow, you got a box of these? He said, yeah, $200, I got 6 Rolexes, you know. And so then I got kind of obsessed with, and then I have some friends that they're sort of tattoo artists, biker guys, and they all have Rolexes for some reason.
Fake
I don't
real.
know. They have real ones. They might have obtained them at gunpoint, but they are real.
Soccer players in Europe, they all have Rolex.
Yeah.
So they get robbed when they play away. The thieves go. They also take the Rolex.
It's a funny kind of currency, you know.
But do you have a Rolex?
I do not. No.
It would be very surprised.
No, I have a flea market watch I got for $35 15 years ago that I just like and it's automatic, you know. I guess Rolex is too, right?
Did your friend give them to the pygmies as well?
Which the
Rolexes?
No,
No.
They wanted Michael Jackson T-shirts.
So how do you feel about the awkwardness? I mean, as a cinematic element in life?
Well, I think a lot's revealed from awkwardness and silences and pauses in communication, you know. And in the films, you know, my films, people say, oh yeah, no, there's nothing happening, and all of these pauses, but the pauses to me are like, especially in this film, are like in music, the notes that aren't played make the notes that are played resonate, you know? And so I sort of looked at it that way. There needs to be these moments, especially when you're with your family. Like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I had gone back to be with my parents and family, we all needed a timeout at a certain point. So in the first story, they get a timeout, but they're in the same room in a chair, you know? But they see a different landscape, so they get a little break from each other. And throughout the story, each one of them occupies that chair for a little time to sort of turn their back on the others, you know.
Your style has been very consistent right from the beginning. When did you first discover the power of silence and the power of the minimal statement? Can you still remember as a cinephile growing up?
Growing up? Well, you know, I grew up in Akron, Ohio, and I just saw like monster movies and stuff like that as a child until my mother, we were in Florida, I was quite young, and she took me to the movies and we saw Thunder Road with Robert Mitchum. It was not a new film at the time, but anyway, it was playing in actually a drive-in in Florida. We were on vacation. And that blew my mind, you know, like, wow, it's not Bambi. It's like criminals in fast cars and being chased by cops and other criminals. Like, wow, you know? So that was just like hillbilly gangsters. It was very cool to me. And then when I went to Paris to study from Columbia University, went there when I was 20, and then I discovered the Cinematheque in Paris, and that's when my interest in films exploded. And I came back with incompletes in my studies because I was living at the Cinematheque to see movies from Japan, India. So anyway, to answer your question, then I discovered like Carl Dreyer, Naruse, Bresson, Ozu, and different rhythms than Hollywood or American films. And I realized films are like music, and sometimes they're quiet, and sometimes they're dynamic, and so it really started then, realizing this musicality of cinema.
Thunder Road stars Robert Mitchum, who you worked with.
And his son, actually.
And his son.
Who plays his brother.
Chris, isn't it? Yeah. And he even sings a title song.
Yes.
Beautiful song.
And they call it Thunder, Thunder, Thunder Road. White Lightning, what is it? Something was...
We tell a story.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Anyway, but you worked with him later on.
Yes, his last film.
And you worked with a number of prolific actors through the years. Is it easy for you to get them on board? And do you feel also that they would enjoy being in a Jim Jarmusch universe, and they would like to come.
They seem to. I think they know I really appreciate them, and I'm very collaborative, and you know, I'm just sort of fearless in my life so far to approaching them, except for Mr. Mitchum was the most daunting to me, and I've never been intimidated working with known people or being with them, except shooting Dead Man. There were times when we'd be rolling and I'd be thinking, that's Robert Mitchum. You're fucking directing. You know, and that's the only time that's ever happened. And he was very funny and self-effacing and quite generous, you know, but very funny and very dry. How are you today, Mr. Mitchum? Worse. You know, this kind of stuff. He was really great.
How was his health at the time?
You know, he was older. He has lived a rugged life. He looks great, but we had to make sure he could not overwork him, you know. But he was very generous and worked hard for the film.
Back to this film, is the third part also a tribute to Paris? Because you talking about...
Well, I don't know about a tribute, but it's a love letter in a way. I love Paris very much. It's, after New York, become the place I don't know. It's been very important in my life to me. I'm currently working to get an artist visa for France.
Okay.
Well, America, God knows what might happen next. I have to get the fuck out of there, you know? I don't know.
You really like to work in France then?
I'm going to shoot my next film in France.
Okay.
Although maybe I shouldn't be telling you guys that.
It's all right. You can keep it like.
No, maybe you shouldn't print that. Is there any way I can retract that? I don't know. It's not
France in
gonna
the
matter.
USA, there must be a place called France in the USA.
Sorry.
A city called France in the USA. There were you?
Well,
That's Texas.
Yeah.
I'm shooting in France, Oklahoma.
I had to tell you that I just, the movie Only Lovers Left Alive is one of my favorite movies of all the times. So my question is that do you sometimes, do you overwatch your movies, and do you think about your old movies, and do you think about your old movies, or are you thinking about the new ones?
No, I have a rule. I see my film at a film festival or whatever. Then I see the film one more time with an audience that paid to see it in a theater. They don't know I'm there. They don't know. And then I'm done. I never ever see them again.
Really?
And
Why
when
those particular two occasions?
Because I've premiered a lot of my films in Cannes, and it's been very helpful to me to get money for the next, etc., or get the films distributed. I'm not interested in competition. I think it's absurd. But I've always wanted the films in competition for the profile to get released, you know? But what was I going to say? When you show your film in Cannes, you kind of get the feeling you're showing it to 2,000 hairdressers from L'Oreal. It's not like it's not people that are there because they love movies. Exactly. You know what I mean? And Cannes been good to me, no offense, but it's kind of true. You know what I mean? It's like
You need the real audience.
I need to see how people, where they laugh, and every audience is different, every screening, what time of day is it, where are you, you know. But I try it one time, and then even if I have to say, put the film to a new format or do something, I do things like, okay, take the sound away, or in the old days when they were on reels, if I had to transfer it to, say, video, say, reels out of order, please. I don't want to see it as a thing anymore, because I give them all I have, you know, and it's fucking hard making films. People that don't do it don't really realize, and it really takes a lot of energy. And so it's like, okay, I'm done with you. Go into the world. Good luck to you. I can't change you. I can't fix you. I love you. Goodbye. Kind of thing, you know?
What do you think about it then?
I don't. I think about the next thing. In fact, it's hard for me here because this film, Father Mother's been finished for quite a while, and yet I have a new script now. So my head's more in the new script because it's like my friend Christopher Doyle, the cinematographer, I was once with him, he was doing an interview, and they said, what's the most exciting film you've ever done? He said, the next one, you know. So I kind of feel that way.
You speak of your love for European and Japanese cinema. For example, Wim Wenders has done a few things in Japanese.
Yes.
Would that be something that you would like to try?
Well, possibly. You know, I was going to film something in Japan, and then it was quite complicated, and the regulations there are very complicated. You have to measure from the street how far your camera is off from. I mean, Japanese are it's a lot of regulation, but I love Japan.
It could happen.
Yeah, and I don't know. I only think of the next one next. I don't.
What's it like reuniting with Tom Waits, someone you worked with so long ago and that you share such a long history with?
Oh, it's always the best, you know. He just called me last night because he read some reviews. And he said, so I guess it didn't suck. But he's just one of my favorite human beings. He's like my brother, you know. I feel so honored to be friends so long, and not only to collaborate, but we've had a lot of weird experiences together. So, you know.
Share something.
Any in this one?
Okay, well, once we're in we're in New York, and I don't know which one to tell. There's so way too many.
You're both members of the Sons of Lee Marvin.
Yes, we are. And it's a kind of secretive organization. At one point, here's a good thing I wasn't there, but a Tom Waits story. He was in a bar in Northern California. He doesn't drink, but he was there getting some soda or something, sitting there, and the bartender says, hey, there's a guy in the booth over there, he wants to talk to you. And Tom's kind of surly, protective guy, and said, well, I don't know him. Why do I want to talk to him? The bartender says, I think you do want to talk to him. And Tom's like, well, come on, man, I'm just here. And he goes, just go talk to that guy. He says, all right, okay. And he goes over and says, so he says, you want to talk to me? What? The guy says, so I heard about the Sons of Lee Marvin. Is that something you're involved in? And Tom says, well, maybe. Why? What's it to you? The guy says, well, I'm Lee Marvin's son. So Tom sat down and, talked with him for a while. So I let Tom say, yeah, so what?
Music plays a very important role in your films. Music, and what can you tell us about it? Perhaps influences characters, because music is very important for you.
Music in this film was difficult for me. For a while I didn't know if there should be any, and then I created some that was often too melancholic, which is my sort of musical trajectory often, and I didn't want to color the film that way. It's very different, like I made with Carter Logan. We made a score for other films, like he didn't work on this one, but for example, in Patterson, there's a central character and a world view of that character, a perception of the world. So the music was sort of naturally flowing from this character in a way, But in Father, Mother, there's no central character. There's no person's point of view. So the music was complicated so it was created as very minimal, 2 voices musically. It's very spare within the film. It's just like a cloud passing by occasionally, or a little distant weather report or something. It was complicated to have any at all. So we worked very hard with Afonso Gonçalves, the editor, to kind of create the music and place it. And it was kind of complicated. But in the end I thought, I like these little clouds here and there, kind of good. But I didn't want to say anything about the emotional state of the film, or, I don't like music that's supposed to tell you how to feel. I like music that just is some clouds painted in the background, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's all spooky, it's very evocative as well.
Well, spooky because that's the only song I licensed in the whole film. It's not original music. And it's one of my favorite songs, that Dusty Springfield version. So Spooky I thought was beautiful for the mother's the mother's favorite song, and it wasn't in the script. I was shooting in Paris, and I had to get up early, and this lovely young driver, she drove me. My French crew was incredible, like 65% young female French crew, one of the best, and I'm gathering them again for the next thing. Anyway, she would say, "What music would you like?" in the car, and I'd say, "No, play your playlist, man. Let's hear what you listen to." And we're driving, and then Spooky by Dusty came on, and I was like, "Oh man, I love this song, one of my favorite songs." And she was like, "Oh cool, I like it too." So we're driving to the set, we were shooting in the empty apartment, and I immediately realized, that's got to be their mother's favorite song, that's got to be in the car when they're going to the storage unit.
So
Hey, somebody get that.
my first impression of the film is that it's quite pessimistic, because you have these two broken families in a way, the first two, and then the third one which is not broken, but it seems to be a bit late.
Well, it's about loss.
It is about loss. Was there pessimistic?
I don't think pessimistic at all. I think it's non-judgmental. I think we all are fucked up, and we mess up our families, and it's complicated being a human being, and it's complicated having a family, being part of a family. It's very complicated and confusing, and we all have it, right? And no one's perfect. And I wanted the film very much to not judge them, just observe them. Like, I was worried at the end when I was cutting the first chapter, and Tom Waits' character is not up front because he's like milking his son, which his son gets love in that way. It's complicated, right?
Yeah.
But I wasn't judging the father either, and I was very worried, like, at the end, is the father going to look like an asshole? But I don't want him to. I just want, that's who he is. He's like he's a con man or something in him. That's how he survives. And he doesn't really share that, although the daughter knows, So I don't know. I didn't want it to be pessimistic. And I don't like the idea of, well, this person's good and this person's bad. And this whole good-bad thing archetypally, it's just not my thing.
Can you talk about the difference in tones in the 3 episodes? Because I don't agree with you. I think the first one, a lot of humor in there. The second one is more like, it's more dry for me, because everything is made for the sake of appearances. And
they're English.
Exactly, yeah.
More dry.
In the third
We're American, we chop and we chop.
And the third one is more uplifting, I think. But in different tones,
Well,
the order.
Yeah, I'll tell you. The thing is, I worked really, really hard to make this film accumulate as a feature, not as episodes, And it takes a lot of effort to make something look effortless, I can tell you. And it's a lot harder to be looking at Cate Blanchett's eyelid than to have 20 zombies come out of the grave. I would go to my hotel room exhausted by the gestures, the details, and I worked really hard so that the third section was very tender and kind of emotional. But it wouldn't be if you saw it separate, I don't think. It would just be, these wacky kids, and they live in Paris, and their parents were wild. But it had to really kind of accumulate. That moment where they embrace, to me, was kind of the arc of the whole thing. To feel, tenderness and love in that way. So.
You say they're English, aren't they Irish?
They're English, they live in Ireland, but they're from England.
They're from England.
And the mother came to Ireland, I mean, it's not in the film, but if you're a writer and you live in Ireland, you don't pay taxes. And Ireland welcomes writers.
You're English too?
I thought of moving there. Because I asked them, what about if you're a screenwriter? Does that count? Well, sure, that counts. It's a writer. You're a writer, then you can do it.
They respect storytellers.
They are storytellers, and their use of language. Me and Charlotte Rampling were in a taxi there going to dinner, but she talks to everyone. Charlotte is some kind of bizarre angel. I just can't. She's amazing. So she's talking to the guy, and the driver said, Well, that'd be as useless as an ashtray on a motorbike. There's just the things they say. And I had a driver each morning that I would sit in the front with him and just get him to talk, because the listening to him say, you can't keep the horses in the churchyard, Jim. And the girls get through the yellow door, but the purple doors for the boys. These kind of things, the way they spoke, is really so lovely, and they love stories,
How was the character of Kate created? How much was it from her, or?
Well, the funny thing is, I was thinking of them as the other way. I was thinking of Vicky as being the nerdy one, and Kate being mischievous. And I know Kate a long time, and believe me, she's quite mischievous. She's really great. Kate is very funny. And then Kate said, Jim, could I be the other one? And Vicky was like, I want to be the mischievous one anyway, So it worked out. But I deferred to Kate first in a way.
Right.
And she chose that. She wanted to be that one to break, sort of things we expect Kate to be. So it was interesting.
And her outlook, was it her idea to look like that, or?
Well, we worked together. She wanted to have short hair.
Right. Okay.
But the wardrobe, every other detail, I collaborated always, on every level. What they wear, what their shoes look like, all of that's very important.
Feels like
Wait, you asked the question.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you, but I'm afraid that I have now just already thinking that the answer is obvious, how you matched the different families to the different cities and locations.
Well, I have a place in the northeast, in the Catskill Mountains, where I work and write in the woods, right? And so I wanted to set something up in sort of the northeast and I'm from northeast Ohio, but still. So I wanted it there, not like California or that part of the U.S. for where he left the so-called real world, as he said, So that was important to me. And then Ireland, originally in the script, they were in England. It was in London. And then after I finished the script, I was thinking, Ireland would be better. I love Ireland too. Anyway, that became Ireland, and then Dublin, which is a very particular looking place with all the red brick buildings, and then Paris, of course. There was that was already gone. That was established in my mind already, just for what Paris means to me. And I tried to show not the touristy Paris. They drive through like the southern part of Paris, and not the cafe they're in isn't a quaint cafe. It's a place where the Chinese proprietors sell lottery tickets more than coffee, And I wanted that kind of feel of Paris, like that they really live there, and they're not tourists there. So it's very important to me, places. In all my films, the locations become like characters to me, so super important.
What is the location of the American story? Where is it in America?
It's in New Jersey, west of New York City, and I had a union problem which said I had to shoot within 30 miles of New York City, or else my whole crew and union. And the unions in America are really bad for handmade films. They just crush you. It's not a good thing. And I'm a union guy, but it's bad. It's why I don't want to shoot there anymore, honestly. But anyway, that's another issue. So the rule was, unless it's within 30 miles of New York City, you have to put up everyone outside, and they can't drive right there. So we found that place 39.5 miles from So, and it was a lovely place, fantastic place. So that was why it was there,
Yes, at the press conference, you were very generous with giving autographs to journalists. And you mentioned that you don't think about your old movies afterwards, but do you like to talk about them when fans approached you?
No, I don't. I don't even remember them. I remember the shooting of them more than the movies themselves. But I don't know, I was friends with Joe Strummer, and always Joe would sign everybody's thing. We'd be in a bar and we'd be there till 4 in the morning. Joe would never, without them I'm nothing, man. I gotta get back, man. Oh God, Joe, can't we leave though? There's still 3 more guys over there. They couldn't even pay for that beer I bought us for them. This guy was so generous a person.
So they're very rare, his autographs. Very rare.
Wow, I don't know. He signed a lot. I'll tell you a beautiful story. Last time I saw Joe Strummer, I was sick in New York. I had the flu. It was raining very hard. Joe's nearby in a restaurant. He calls me. He's like, Jim, I've only been here 2 days. I haven't seen you. I'm leaving tomorrow. Can you come? I'm right nearby. Can you come? Can I just see you? I'm like, well, I'm kind of not. I'm under the weather, and it's raining. But man, I got to come see you. So I go there, and there's some mutual friends, and I'm not feeling good, and I see Joe, and we're happy to see each other. And then he says, I'm going to walk Jim home, it's raining, and I'm going to take the umbrella and walk him back to his door. So Joe walks me back in the rain, and he stops me in front of my door, and this is very important in my life. He says, he looks me in the eye, and he says, Jim, remember this, our job is to protect empathy at all costs and to live groovy lives. And then he hugs me and he goes off in the rain, and like 6 weeks later he was dead, So I'm trying to protect empathy at all costs and live a groovy life. Look where we are.
It still moves you when you tell this.
He was such a generous person, He was just really a great spirit. He was 50 when he died, but he had a heart problem. He could have died when he was 5. It was just like a bomb that could have gone off any time. And look what he gave us in 50 years. What he gave the world and that spirit, The future's unwritten. This thing of Joe. And he's like, one thing I heard him tell these kids, when you're really down and really low and depressed and the world is fucked up and everything's going wrong, remember one thing. And they're like, what? You're alive! You're alive, man! That was his spirit.
I have a question.
Anyway,
about Patterson. I want to ask. In Patterson, the poetry is not just what characters reads, it's the way he observes the world for me. And what was this film your way arguing that attention is also formal art?
Was it what? Sorry, I didn't know.
Attention itself is a formal art when you attention something.
Attention?
Yeah.
Gee, I don't know. I just thought Patterson was sort of like celebrating the observation of details and looking at small things and not big things.
Yeah.
And the poet that wrote the poems is Ron Padgett, and he is from the so-called New York School of Poets. And these are my godparents. Everything I do, I'm guided by the New York School of Poets. And I studied with Kenneth Coate and David Shapiro. The New York poets include Frank O'Hara and James Schuyler, and Anne Waldman is the photograph of the wife in the first chapter. When you see on the mantle, that was Tom Waits' wife. She's from the New York School of Poets. And the New York School of Poets, they based a lot of their approach on Frank O'Hara's manifesto from 1959 called Personism, which says you write a poem to one person. You create a painting or something and you think of one person, like a love letter, or you don't proclaim to the world, you make it personal, and you focus it down, and also make sure there's humor somewhere too. Don't avoid, poetry can have funny things, like Ron Padgett has very funny things. So I always they're my guide in everything I create.
One more question, if you don't mind. Just wanted to come back. I'm sorry. When you said that you were thinking of leaving America, in what sense do you feel the climate has changed?
Oh, yeah, it's changed, I guess it's not really that surprising, but the speed at which this kind of kleptocracy has formed itself is quite concerning. And it's a model after Putin, that the right wing in America is pursuing. And it's going pretty fast. And it's not about helping people in any way. It's 4 words. I don't know why they don't just say on the news at night, they're stealing your money. And that's all they do in every way. It's like what Putin did, And it's very fast, so I don't know what to think. But I'm an American, I'm as American, as James Brown, you know what I mean? I'm as American as Walt Whitman and Emily Dickinson, and I'm as American as, the Wu-Tang Clan, and we're American. So we are Americans. I don't really like nationality as something like, I wouldn't give my life to defend America because it's based on genocide, slavery, and the oppression of women. You know what I mean? So what would I do? I might move to France. but I am American, and I do love all these things, and that's, it's my country, whatever the hell that means. So yeah, I don't know how to respond. I don't know. It seems like politics in America, all of the things set up for democracy, all of the structure doesn't exist anymore. It's what I call now Joe Pesci world, like Joe Pesci in Scorsese films. It's sort of like, yeah, I got your judicial branch right here, fuckface. How about I blow your fucking face off, Yeah, I got your executive order right here. I'll shoot your fucking feet off. This is sort of the approach. It's no longer the system. But and we have like the Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer. Well, we wrote a strong letter to President Bush, expressing I don't know what to say.
But if artists like you leave the States, what will be left?
Well, we're not leaving yet. And we've got Neil Young, and we've got Jack White, and we've got people speaking up. But I want to read you a nice quote. Jenny Beth, she was the front person of Savages, the band in England, and now she does her own music. It's very hard. Jenny Beth?
I do, yeah.
So she gave an interview last week I was reading, and I love this thing. She said, art doesn't have to talk about politics to be political, to change the world. Artists are here to open us, to make us feel more in touch with others and connected and empathetic. That's what art does. And I just really love how succinctly she said that,
I'm sorry to be a pain, but...
You are always a pain, Charles McDonald.
But you should
all they all told me before you came?
I'm sorry?
They all said, it'd be nice to talk to you, but why do you have to work with that Charles?
He said that.
We are playing football fans.
Thank you very much. But we're not going to post.
No.
It's just... Thank you all. Thanks for your time and thinking about it. Thank you for your story. The horses in the child.
It happens to
Where does your origins come from? American families. Their father's side is Bohemian, from what is now Republic. And my mother's side is mixed German and English. So, have you ever kind of searched for your... No, I don't honestly, like I don't know why I hesitate.
I'm so sorry, it's my daughter, she was on the red carpet, the photographer, and she asked if I can ask her autograph, but the day she was on the carpet. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Bye.